Good morning. Happy weekend, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back to all the newer subscribers. We typically do daily videos in the evening, but we saw some incredible intensification start last night with Hurricane Erin. Now a solid Category 4 hurricane. And the bigger concern with Erin is that she is expected to grow in size significantly, perhaps getting to 3 times the size she was yesterday as she motors up through the Western Atlantic. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we go further, if you have not yet become a subscriber, I would request that you do so. Like the video, share with your friends. My goal here, even though it may sound like hype, is to just give you the facts and give you my interpretation as a meteorologist of over 20 years. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen right here. My watch alarm is going off because I was supposed to be getting up now, but here we go. Close to 7 a.m. And about an hour ago, the Hurricane Center has found Category 4 intensity, wind, and pressure. Winds up to 130 miles per hour, which was the forecast eventually later on this weekend. But we got there in just 12 hours from a Category 1 when many of us went to bed last night. Winds 130 miles per hour. The pressure has dropped significantly down to 948 millibars. And this was just after 5 a.m., about 5:45 a.m. The plane just made another pass. I'm going to show you in a moment. It's actually getting stronger than that. So I do think we're going to have a Category 5 hurricane some point later today or tonight. Here's a look at what the aircraft were finding during their flight last night. Many of us went to bed and it was beginning to form that eye, and the pressure was down to 980 millibars. Models were showing pretty quick intensification at that point. But many of us woke up to a storm that was quite a bit stronger, and the pass from earlier was 951 millibars. The storm is actually getting stronger and stronger very quickly here, and our latest pass here is indicating that the pressure has dropped even more down into the low to mid 940s millibars. Probably would have to drop another 20 millibars or so to get to Category 5, but it's well on its way. And the winds are responding to that drop in pressure. We saw flight level winds that made this a borderline Category 4 at about 5:45 a.m. The latest pass here at just before 7 a.m. shows those winds have come up at least another 10 miles per hour. So Erin is turning into a powerhouse. Our first hurricane of the season is, in fact, not just a major one, but a very quickly intensifying one. And this is the temperature inside the eye. It has warmed substantially just between the two passes over the last hour, from 18 degrees to over 22 degrees Celsius, meaning the warming eye indicates a rapidly intensifying hurricane. Here's a look, and you're getting a front row view of what's going on here from the cheap seats here in the Northern Lesser Antilles, meaning the storm isn't that far from you, but it is far enough away where you kind of need the binoculars to see it. But it is growing in size, overtaking the dry air that was once in place. And here's a closer view of the storm. Got that classic look to it here with the eye that is getting a little bit bigger, but fighting off the dry air, and a storm that is beginning to fill all four sides of it. Sometimes these storms become hurricanes, but they've got wind shear that can limit where they grow. This one looks like it has fought off all of those barriers to its intensification. You can see that on the water vapor as well. This is very dry air to the north and west of the center, but a few days ago, that dry air was right next to the storm. You can see Erin has done a good job of fighting it off. So this system is growing and growing very quickly and likely to continue intensifying. Another thing to take a quick look at here, I do think it's temporary, but yesterday the storm was gaining latitude, and today it has not. In fact, it's actually moving more on a due west path. So I think it will eventually resume a path to the west northwest. But interesting to see that, because every little nudge southward from the expected track is going to increase the amount of wind and rain we see in the northeastern Caribbean islands, and that includes you in Puerto Rico as well. However, this is not going to be making a direct hit, fortunately. Here is the early morning visible. You can see the storm is not very big yet, but it is growing. The eye is certainly well defined, clearing out and warming substantially. So this is going to be a powerhouse hurricane, kind of like what we saw with Hurricane Lee back in 2023, but Lee actually strengthened a couple of days farther to the east. This one waited, and a lot of that has to do with the surrounding water temperatures and the upper level environment. This is microwave satellite imagery. This was taken as the storm was rapidly intensifying. We saw the eye wall forming on the eastern side here. Sorry about the clash. It is likely to have filled all the way around, and we're going to get probably more microwave imagery. By the way, this was the product that was considering being cut from the budget cuts that have gone on with Doge. I really hope they don't do that. I realize that money is tight. Trust me, I understand that. But this is a vital product in providing information that maybe aircraft aren't able to get in there to do, because aircraft are a lot more expensive than this one satellite. So anyway, that's my one plug here. I'm not a political person. I don't vote either way. I just would like to see the data that we need to make these kind of decisions. I think that's fairly common sense. Here's radar imagery. The center of the hurricane, by the way, is up in here, so the radar doesn't go out far enough to be able to see it. But you can see bands of very heavy rain are hitting islands like Anguilla and St. Martin and the northern Lesser Antilles. So they're getting a lot of rain. The Virgin Islands starting to see some bands of showers as well. That will continue to increase. And the reason the storm has intensified very quickly is that it was fighting wind shear and dry air out in here. But the warm water that's been in place, and that's the warm water I've been talking about since the preseason forecast of being a concern for those of us on the East Coast. It's warmer than average, but as soon as it stepped over this 29 degrees Celsius isotherm, that's when it went to town. And there's even warmer water waiting for it when it gets north of Hispaniola into the south and west of Bermuda. So I don't think the system is done strengthening. It's going into some warmer water, and the upper level conditions are fairly they're fairly favorable here for this to intensify more, with a peak somewhere in here potentially. It's possible it peaks a little bit earlier down in here. Again, that's something that's very difficult to figure out. Only God can figure out the forecast, and I am not him. And if you don't believe in him, just trust me. we have no control over that. So this is the official Hurricane Center forecast. This was from 5 o'clock, so it was a Category 3 at the time. But an hour later, aircraft found it was a Category 4, so it's already stronger than forecast. They're going 150 miles per hour here tomorrow as it goes north of Puerto Rico. It may already be very close to that now, so I think this gets bumped up to Category 5. Tough to say what the ceiling ends up being on this, but maybe 160, 165. I mean, we've seen situations here where I jump out with a forecast that's a lot more aggressive than what the Hurricane Center goes, and then that ends up being too low. Every now and then it ends up being too high, but typically it's too low, and that's just the nature of rapid intensification. Here's some good news. All of our tropical models are honing in on a pretty well confident path, at least over the next 5 days, that keeps it to the west of Bermuda and to the east of the eastern seaboard. Now, it's a growing storm, so the impacts are going to be felt over a larger area as this moves northward. But the good news here is that there's no reliable guidance that continues this to the west and makes a landfall on the U.S. or on the Bahamas. Now, there's a possibility this could shift in either direction. I would guess it probably is not coming back to the right, which is something we don't want to see in Bermuda. It may get back into here on a few of these models, but I'm feeling pretty good about what I'm seeing here as far as this being a quote unquote fish storm. Now, if it's a Category 5 fish storm, it's still going to be felt. But we're not going to see all kinds of damage everywhere. The high surf could be a concern on the eastern seaboard. Those of you that live in the Outer Banks know what a rough coastal storm can do. It can take out houses, even without a direct hit. It could be sunny and windy and still take out a house. I hope that doesn't happen, but that is a possibility. And the ensembles have stopped their motion to the west. We've pretty much gone just past 70 west and not a whole lot further, maybe to 72 west. But the Outer Banks are at 76 west. Cape Cod is at 70 west, but this will be turning well before then. So pretty good track agreement that stopped shifting, but over the last few days, it has shifted west closer to the coast and farther away from Bermuda. Here's the AI ensemble. The majority of the ensemble members, except for a couple, keep this offshore. None of them hits Bermuda. We do interestingly have a few that are making that run at the coast. We'll have to see. Those are also ones we have to watch in the Bahamas. Those are outliers at this point. I don't typically forecast outliers, but something we need to be watching just in case. And we're going to know here probably in a day and a half how that's going to play out. Remember, I just mentioned that the storm has stopped gaining latitude. Now, if you see here in the short term, that's actually been expected. Let me make this a different color for everybody here. So you can see here, it is still moving west. There's going to be a little bit of undulation, but when we get into Monday and Tuesday, if it keeps moving west, that's obviously something everybody and their mom on YouTube will be talking about. But right now, that's not expected. You can see the European ensemble members in fairly good agreement. other than one member here close to Bermuda. The majority of them are about halfway between North Carolina and Bermuda, a little bit favored more towards Bermuda. This is the NOAA Eagle, a little bit farther west in the European. Interestingly, you will see because of the shape of the trough that's going to be coming in here, there's a little bit of a bend back on some of our models to the west. Something you want to watch in Newfoundland, especially Avalon Peninsula. Right now, I'm not expecting a direct hit, but something that we are going to have to watch more carefully. The Google Mind shows that concern to Newfoundland, a little bit of concern to the Outer Banks and even the islands off of Massachusetts as well. Again, it would take a substantial shift for me to be more concerned, but something that we should just kind of note at this point. And then the intensity forecast, well, it's already busting here. We're already up to here at this point. The Hurricane Center forecast is too low. It's probably up in here and then settling in eventually. And that's the toughest part of hurricane forecasting is the intensity, especially because storms that we've seen in recent years. I mean, we go back to things like Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Dorian, Irma, Maria, Ian. No model can really nail down exactly when that rapid intensification is going to come. They often are either too early on it or they're way behind the curve on it. And so it's happening. And I do think we are getting to category 5 at this point. The ship's category 4 all the way along this track west of Bermuda. It's showing those high probabilities of rapid intensification continuing. And here's a few reasons why. The wind shear is still quite low. It's going to stay very low here until we get out into here. And by then, the storm will probably have peaked in intensity. Water temperatures remain around 30 degrees Celsius, which is above average, but not extreme. It is warm. Those stay warm until the system gets up into here northwest of Bermuda. We've got a lot of ocean heat content that comes with it. So it's not just what's at the surface, but how much warm water all the way down. The amount of moisture continues to increase. This is what we have to watch here, because if the moisture is increasing, the heat content's high and the wind shear is still kind of low, this system could hold on to its strength quite a bit. And it's something that we have to be watching here. But the good news is we can watch it from afar because it's not making a direct landfall. And then we finally see the wind shear coming up as this system passes to the east of the eastern seaboard, to the north of Bermuda, and closer to Canada. And that is common because we have an upper level jet streak, which will be moving through, and that's going to increase the westerlies above it. That always happens when you gain latitude. So that's where we are with things. Here's a couple of models just to give you an idea of what the environment looks like. One thing I want you to keep in mind, not the pressure, although we're already below where it says it's going to be this afternoon. It's already stronger than that. The pressure's down right now to where the forecast thinks it'll be this time tomorrow morning. It's clearly stronger. But what you notice here is that the system is going to grow substantially. Take a look at the wind field here. The pressure stays low. This is a category 4, probably right into the first half of next week. The size of the storm continues to grow. And then you can see as winds aloft pick up from the west and northwest, it does lose it gets more dry air on the western side, but then expands on the eastern side. So that's good for the land masses, not so great for the fish, unfortunately here. Here's a look at our most extreme regional tropical model. It's already way too weak. It's showing a category 2 when it's already well into the 4s at this point, but you see it grow. Take a look at how much the system is going to grow. Category 5 intensity now being shown here. It's showing it happening on Monday. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen later today, to be honest with y'all. Why wouldn't I be honest? All right, I got to stop saying that. But you can see here a very well-structured storm that grows in size substantially. We do eventually have a little bit of intrusion on the southwest of the system, which is probably due to wind shear and other effects here. But it still fights that off pretty substantially here. And the important thing to show is that Bermuda is to the east of this, well to the east. The U.S. is well to the west. This is going right down the middle here, right through the fairway, and not hitting anybody, fortunately, over the next 5 or 6 days. Take a look at the GFS simulated satellite. You can see the storm's got an eye now, but take a look at how the system grows in size. It's going to be double the size that it is now on Tuesday, and then triple the size that it is now on Wednesday. And this eye is massive. I don't know if it's going to look quite like this, but that is a possibility. The thing that concerns me with this is that the more it grows, the more it's going to have an effect on the eastern seaboard, and in particular, from say Surf City, Topsail Beach, all the way up through Cape Cod and even coastal portions of Canada, as the size of the system grows. So we're going to look at that in the coming days. The probability of hurricane force wind remains too low for land masses like the Bahamas and Bermuda, and certainly the U.S. The possibility of 58-mile-an-hour winds does climb for Bermuda here by Tuesday. It still is too low across the majority of the Caribbean islands and the Bahamas. But the probability of tropical storm force winds is high enough to affect the Turks and Caicos, the north coast of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Northern Leeward Islands, Bermuda especially, and maybe even the Outer Banks if this shifts a little bit more to the west when we get into next Wednesday. Here's a look at when those winds are likely to arrive. This is the most likely time of the strongest winds moving in, and we see that the Virgin Islands could see tropical storm force winds later today. I'm sure we're going to get a tropical storm watch for the Virgin Islands and maybe parts of Puerto Rico here. I don't see why it hasn't happened yet. We may see that over the Turks and Caicos and the southeastern Bahamas, possibly even the north coast of Dominican Republic, maybe even Punta Cana. We will definitely have a tropical storm watch for Bermuda. The bigger question is, do we have a hurricane watch? That will, of course, the curve is gonna make that decision for us. If it curves a little sooner, then Bermuda could see this being worse. The Outer Banks, East Coast, I don't think we're quite there just yet, but we're going to have to watch. Rainfall will remain heavy on the islands here today, tonight, even into tomorrow. We could see locally 6 inches, higher amounts along the coast here. Those of you that are looking at metric, that's 150 millimeters of rain. So we could have some localized flooding, especially in those mountainous areas. And as far as the wind speeds go, here's a look at the Caribbean. Right now, we're expecting wind speeds to maybe gust close to 40 to 45 miles per hour on the Virgin Islands and closer to 30 to 35 over the eastern portion of Puerto Rico. Less when we get to the south coast, Vieques and Hispaniola. Turks and Caicos could see wind gusts here on Sunday night and Monday that do approach tropical storm intensity. These are not. Here's kilometers per hour, and you can see we could have gusts over 70 kilometers per hour in the British Virgin Islands, over 60 in the U.S. Virgin Islands, 40 to 50 on the north coast, and Turks and Caicos 50 to 60 kilometers per hour as well. We'll come back here and take a look real quick at the rest of the Atlantic Basin. Here's a look at where the models are comparing for now. We'll take a look here at early Sunday morning, and you can see the icon is quite strong. It's probably not strong enough because we're already down close to that pressure. The GFS and the icon are in pretty good agreement. The European, though, is definitely too weak, which is a common bias it has at its resolution. But we're going to look at the tracks, and you can see all three are in pretty good shape here up to 54 hours. Now, it does start to expand in the level of uncertainty. The icon has a Category 5 hurricane, and it's a little closer to the Bahamas than we would like. The GFS has a Category 4. It's about 100 miles north and east. The GFS is in between the two as a Category 3. Let's take this up further in time to Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And you can see the icon has not stopped strengthening. It's a deep Category 5. This is about Dorian strength almost. Is that possible? Sure. I think it gets there sooner and then starts weakening, just to be honest with you all. The GFS, still a Category 4, but here's the difference. The icon is providing a scare to the East Coast, and I don't think that's going to be the case, but we do need to watch it. The GFS seems a little more reasonable to me, and the European's a little in between the two. So I'm going with the European, but I'm going stronger than this. And then as we get to 120 hours, you can see the icon is getting closer to the coast of North Carolina with tropical storm force winds at the coast, not hurricane force winds. The GFS, though, is farther east, and the European is in between the two. The AI, by the way, is closer to the AI and the operational are pretty close to each other. So model agreement's not terrible at this point, just something that we need to watch. Wind speeds across the Bahamas, going with the Euro, which is the middle of the road. You can see here in miles per hour, we could get up to 40 miles per hour. Turks and Caicos, mid-30s across the central Bahamas here. That's miles per hour. Kilometers per hour. Oops, the Euro's still trickling in here. Kilometers per hour are going to be about 50 to maybe 60 over the Turks and Caicos, and 40 to 50 across the central Bahamas, locally higher. Here's a look at the east coast of the United States and Bermuda. You'll see the winds coming up here on Wednesday morning, and then you see that curve coming. So we hope this curve is sooner than later, except in Bermuda. We don't want to see it that quickly. We want it to kind of get a little bit farther north. Right now, the European, though, keeps the system far enough offshore so that we will probably have some pretty gusty winds at the coast, but staying under 50 miles per hour is the hope at this point. They could come up more when we get up into Atlantic Canada. That's if the European is correct. I do want to show you the GFS real quick, and you can see here it's actually a little closer to Bermuda at this point. Here's a look at Bermuda. We right now are not expecting a direct hit, but winds do come up on Wednesday. They're at their highest here Wednesday night and Thursday morning, perhaps 60 to 70 miles per hour. In kilometers per hour, that gets us, and I hate when it does that. Sorry about that. It gets us to about 100 kilometers per hour. So if the track shifts back to the right, the GFS is showing stronger winds there, then those numbers come up a little bit. But right now, the GFS and Euro are about the same level here at about 100 kilometers per hour. So pretty substantial storm coming. Thought I was going to display. Yes. Okay. Atlantic Canada here from the GFS. We are going to see a wind speed. Where's my my swath? Here we go. Get the swath going. You can see the GFS right now keeps us far enough offshore of Newfoundland so that it's not a direct hit, but that's still a possibility. The window gets very big here over time. We don't want to discount the possibility of possibly a direct hit or a close call. And you can see the European is definitely more aggressive on this than the GFS. It does have wind speeds at the coast of 70 to 75 kilometers per hour. That's not super powerful, but it is certainly going to be something that could cause some local power outages and maybe some local erosion and damages at the beaches. So keep that in mind. This is only about 200 miles, 300 kilometers offshore. If it comes back to the west, we could see these numbers exponentially get higher. All right, so there's my discussion on Erin. We'll look real quick at the rest of the tropics. Western Pacific, 2 areas of investigation. The rest of the Atlantic, pretty quiet. I talked about this yesterday, an area of interest. I mentioned it in the morning. They put it in the evening. 10% chance. It's not fully tropical. It's exposed on the western side, but there are showers and storms with it. This area is going to circle into the Gulf Stream, so it could briefly become a subtropical depression or storm. It's going to be pretty unlikely, though, and even if it does, Erin's going to basically gobble it up over here as Erin moves off to the north and west. And behind Erin, we're going to talk about what's coming off of Africa next week, because that is something to mention, believe it or not. We're not finished after Erin. So you can see here another wave comes across, and in a week, it's going to be possibly impacting the islands. This is next Friday into Saturday. We've got a 40% chance of at least a depression at that point. There's a 1 behind it, but we do need to watch this because there is more and more support for something that may try to form. There's a huge question mark in how and when. I can't tell you what it's going to look like in 8 or 9 days. Don't look at the GFS run after run because it's all over the place. But right now there's support for another system, perhaps in about a week or so, affecting land. There's where that graphic went. I was going to show you the wave heights here real quick before we look at next week. You can see the size of the storm growing substantially. We're going to see waves up to 100 feet in size here as the system gets closer to Bermuda. Fortunately, the worst of the waves are offshore, but the Outer Banks could be dealing with wave heights of 10 to 15 feet. Bermuda could be dealing with wave heights over 20 feet. And in the middle of the storm, it's going to be completely hazardous with waves of 90 to 100 feet, according to this model. So the storm grows substantially, and that means we're going to have rip currents and dangerous swells all the way up into New England, all the way down to the east coast of Florida and the northeastern Bahamas as well. Let's take a look at what's coming after Erin. Real quick here, because I really need to get running. Got another wave getting ready to come off of Africa. A lot of dry air in place right now. It's going to be on the struggle bus for a while. In fact, anything that comes off of Africa, in my opinion, is probably not developing until it gets out into here at the earliest, and more likely up in here. The only reason Erin had a chance to develop in here was the fact that there was what's called a Kelvin wave that moved over it, which enhanced convection. It allowed storms to grow in a place where they typically don't just yet. Waves originate here, but they typically don't grow until they get out into here. The Atlantic looks like it's even going to be kind of hostile here and here, and it may not happen until it gets up into here, but we're going to have to wait and see. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Here's a look at Africa. You can see tough to say where the next wave comes from that develops. This one's probably not got much of a future. This one may. This one over here looks a little more robust. So it's probably these two that we're going to be tracking here in about a week to a week and a half. You can see here, the wave coming off of Africa doesn't do a whole lot of anything. The next one, though, has a shot. This is going to be Tuesday into Wednesday, maybe a tropical depression, but not a lot of support for it just yet. The wave after it doesn't even come off until we get to about this time next weekend. So generally speaking, they're moving west to west-northwest, following in the wings of Hurricane Erin, but you don't see anything strong showing up yet in the next week. We just have some possibilities. Real quick, I do want to show you where this first system is going to go potentially. And this is going to be next Thursday. And then here's Friday night. So in about a week, it's almost in the same place as where Erin is, but you can see there's a lot of spread here. There's a possibility that the first one doesn't form, the next one may. There's a possibility this recurves. There's some possibility this goes into the Caribbean. So we can look at all the GFS models and get scared, but the reality of it is it's just way too early to try to figure out how this is going to play out. Really, it's just something that probabilistically could happen. And I would say there's a pretty decent chance of it happening. You know, if we take a look at next Saturday, it is very possible that those of you that may have plans to be in the Northeast Caribbean have a storm to deal with, but it's equally possible that something could be out here. So we're going to keep an eye on that for you all, but I appreciate your time today. Real quick, just going to take a peek at the recon to see what's come in here. And it's already past the center, so I don't really have any new data at this point, but a moderate Category 4 storm, and quite possibly it'll be a 5 here by this evening. I'm a Christian, and I want to close us with the Word of God. That is the book that I read every day. No matter what's going on with the weather, God is always there. And he sent Jesus to die on the cross for us. Matthew 20:28, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. And this means so much. Before I became a Christian, I truly did not have the hope that I do now of eternal life. And not just eternal life, but what was going on in life today and what was going to happen in the future. I put all my faith in people around me, how much money I made, put all my worth in what I looked like, how much I weighed. And it was a dark road, to be honest with you. When I discovered that there was more for me and it started to make more and more sense, you know, I looked at all these different religions, and one religion stood out to me as we're sending somebody to die and then come back to life, be raised from the dead to forgive us of our sins. I was like, I don't see that anywhere else. It may not be right, but it's something I can get behind. I would rather go out in faith than wait for it to be too late to make that decision, if that makes sense to anyone here. So I just wanted to encourage you today, if you're here and you're a believer, that the best times are to come. And if you are not a believer, I'm not going to judge you. You can skip past this if you'd like, but I truly believe God led you to me here in the first place to hear this one message, that the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, rose from the dead so that we could live eternally in life. We're never going to be perfect. We're always going to sin. No sin absolves you of that fact, but Jesus can wipe that record clean for you so that you can eternally live in heaven with him, and he is the Son of Man. So I appreciate you all joining me this morning. I plan to be back later today towards evening. We will keep you posted throughout the day on what's going on with Erin, but I would expect she'll continue to strengthen quite a bit here more. I hope everyone has a wonderful Saturday. God bless you.